Hello and welcome everyone. Today let us begin with our lesson The Mughal Empire Part 2. Today we are going to see the Mughal military campaigns and about the six great Mughal emperors in detail. So let's begin. So as discussed earlier, Babur, the founder of the Mughal Empire, he was the first emperor who succeeded to the throne of Fargana in 1494 when he was only 12 years of old. Now, Babur was ruling Fargana, a part of Central Asia, at a very young age. But he was forced to leave the ancestral throne due to the invasions of different Mongol groups, the Uzbeks, and even the internal conflicts in between the relatives. So he was wandering over, and then finally he was able to seize, capture Kabul in 1504. And we all know that in 1526 he defeated the Sultan of Delhi, Ibrahim Lodi, at Panipat and then captured the Delhi and Agra. Now, as earlier we were discussing that the last dynasty of the Sultanate period was the Lodi, and Ibrahim Lodi was defeated by the Emperor Babur. But then, what was the reason for Babur coming to India and having a war with Ibrahim Lodi? So it so happened that when Babur was ruling in Fargana in Central Asia, that time Lodis were ruling our subcontinent or over the Sultanate. And the local rulers, the small rulers who were around them or neighboring, the ministers, the nobles, they were not very happy with the rule of the Lodis. And as a result, they sent a message to Babur to come to India to defeat the Lodis. But then it was not like that mere invitation was for Babur accepted that invitation because he was lured with the wealth and prosperity of Hindustan. So not only to become an emperor or not only to defeat the Lodis, but to conquer, to take away or to loot all the wealth that India had. That was the main reason for Babur to come to India and start ruling the place. Now, the relationship between the Mughals and the other kingdoms, like we have Ahoms, Sikhs, the Rajputs, and so many people, were very different. So, we will be learning it further, like how were the relations with the other kingdoms and the Mughals. But then here we have a contradictory statement like Humayun's relationship with Safavid Iran or Safavid Shah was different from Akbar, and the annexation of Golconda and Bijapur in Aurangzeb's reign did not end hostilities in Deccan during the rise of the Marathas. So, what does this particular sentence mean? We are going to see further when we discuss about each and every emperor in detail. So, you just need to remember that they had a good relationship with other kingdoms, and Humayun's relationship with Safavid Iran and that dynasty, and Akbar's and Safavid Iran's relations were quite different. How? That we will see in a short while. So now let us talk about the great Mughal rulers. So we are going to discuss about the six great Mughal rulers, starting with the founder member, of course, Babur. So as discussed even earlier and even in the earlier session, Babur, who first came to Indian subcontinent and defeated Ibrahim Lodi in 1526 and was successful to establish his own empire in the Indian subcontinent. In the very next year, that is in 1527, in the Battle of Khanwa, he fought against Rana Sangha of Mewar and easily defeated him. The following year, in 1528, he also defeated the Rajputs at Chanderi. It was a very short span of 4 years, but Babur conquered a number of territories that extended from Himalayas to Gwalior, from Indus to Bihar. Just talking more about Babur, his real name was Zahiruddin Babur, and he was a learned man who could speak three languages: Persian, Turkish, and Arabic. To get more information about Babur's personality, his reign, and his kingdom. We have a book named Babar Nama, which is written in his memory, so we can get a lot of information through that book. He died in year 1530, and his eldest son, Nasruddin Muhammad Humayun, succeeded him in 1530. Humayun had three brothers, Kamran, Hindal, and Askari. The name Humayun actually means lucky, but in reality, if you know, his life was full of problems. As a ruler, he faced a lot of differences and disturbances. So it's said that when Humayun was ruling, he had to face Sher Shah Suri twice in the battles of Chausa in the year 1550, 1539 and 1540 at Chausa and Kannauj respectively. During that time, Sher Shah Suri defeated Humayun, and Humayun flee to Iran in exile for next 15 years. And in these 15 years, Humayun got help from Safavid Iran, and he could gather or have a standing army of few soldiers, and he was ready, he was well prepared to recover the lost territories in India and capture his throne from Safavid Iran. But as he came back to have a battle with Sher Shah or to take away his throne, Sher Shah had already died and his successors were weak. So finally, Humayun was successful and got back the throne in 1555. But as luck would have it, he did not survive for a long time after this. It so happened that he fell down from the stairs of his library, which was known as Sher Mandal, and he died in the year 1556. So this was the end of the rule of Humayun. After Humayun, we have his son Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, the great ruler Emperor Akbar, who was born in Amarkot at the time when his father Humayun was in exile. With the sudden death of Humayun, Akbar was made a king when he was just 13 years old, and Bairam Khan was made the regent or guardian of young Akbar. He was the greatest ruler of the Mughal dynasty who brought glory to the Mughal empire, and therefore he is known as the great Emperor Akbar. As soon as Akbar assumed powers, he defeated Hemu in the second battle of Panipat. In 1556, Akbar ended the regency of Bairam Khan II. Akbar took over the reins of his kingdom and followed the policies of conquests and alliances to consolidate his kingdom. We are going to read in detail about Akbar's policies, his administrative skills, his administrative policies, the war techniques in the coming sessions. Let's now move on to the next ruler, son of Akbar, who is Jahangir or Prince Salim, who was the eldest son of Akbar. He ascended the throne in the year 1605. Jahangir means the ruler of the world. He is known in history for dispensing justice to one and all. Jahangir inherited a solid empire, but he did not loosen his hold over it. Jahangir tried to consolidate the empire he inherited. So he also followed the same military campaigns, he followed the administrative policies laid down by Akbar. Jahangir got married to Meherun Nisa and conferred a title of Noor Jahan or Light of the World. She was extremely intelligent, talented, and beautiful. Jahangir always took her advice on all the important issues. Jahangir struck silver coins bearing his own titles on one side, and on the other the inscription struck in the name of Queen Begum Noor Jahan. Now, Noor Jahan was always making efforts to promote her son in law, Shahryar, to the throne, and her efforts resulted in a revolt of Prince Khurram against Jahangir. So, here Mehrun-Nisa or Noor Jahan, the wife of Jahangir, wanted her son-in-law to ascend the throne, whereas Khurram started revolting because he had the right and he was the actual successor. So after the death of Jahangir, we have Shah Jahan taking over, and he was successful to ascend the throne in the year 1627. He defeated Shahryar and then was given a title of Shah Jahan, that is ruler of the world. So his real name was Prince Khurram. Shah Jahan's reign was full of turmoil. He witnessed many revolts. He had to march against the Bundela Rajputs and was able to crush the revolt. Next was the revolt in Deccan. Shah Jahan invaded Deccan and annexed Ahmednagar, Bijapur, and Golconda, signed a peace treaty with Shah Jahan, and agreed to pay an annual tribute as promised. But then the rule ended with the revolt of Aurangzeb against his own father Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan actually showed immense interest in architecture. He built the magnificent Taj Mahal at Agra and made that city as his capital. There was no clear law of succession in the Mughal dynasty as such. Shah Jahan fell ill. Even before he died, a war of succession broke out among his four sons, Dara Shikoh, Shuja, Murad, and Aurangzeb. In 1658, Aurangzeb ascended the throne after defeating and killing his main rival Dara Shikoh. He made his father Shah Jahan a prisoner at Agra fort. Then he crowned himself as the Mughal emperor. Shah Jahan died in the year 1666. Aurangzeb was given the title of Alamgir, meaning conqueror of the world. He was the last of the great Mughals. He ruled for almost 49 years. During his long reign, the Mughal Empire reached the largest size, covering nearly the entire of India. Aurangzeb was a strict disciplinarian. He was an orthodox, God fearing Muslim. He held a very simple lifestyle and was appropriately described as Zinda Pir or a living saint. Aurangzeb never wore costly robes nor used gold and silver vessels. He was not in favor of taking money from the treasury for his personal use. He copied the Quran and sewed the caps and sold them. Thus, Aurangzeb's reign was marked by revolts. And we all know the revolts with Marathas, very famous. He was not able to subdue Shivaji Maharaj and even his successors. It resulted in an independent Maratha state. As a ruler, Aurangzeb did not have a vision. His policies were to a large extent responsible for the decline of the Mughal Empire. So, many reasons, many things that Aurangzeb introduced were actually the reasons for weakening and declining of the Mughal Empire. So, whatever I have discussed today is more than what is given in your textbook. But I would like you all to go through your textbook where you have a mention about all these great Mughal rulers. It's on page number 48 and 49. Please do read it, mark the important points, and when we meet the next time, we can discuss over it. So, till then, whatever I have told you, whatever I have tried to explain you, please do listen to it carefully, read the lesson, and still, if you have any doubts, please do keep a note of it. When we meet for the next time, I will surely clear your doubts. So, till then, take care, bye, stay safe, stay healthy.